Every time my mom tells the story of how she met my dad, whether it's to me or to someone who asks, her friends, people like that, she talks about how they met in her hometown where he was on vacation with his family. It was kind of a summer fling, a beach romance, but they fell in love with each other. They fell in love with each other. They didn't want to be apart. When he went back to his city, they kept talking a lot. At that time, communication was a bit less than it is now, but even so, they were still able to talk on the phone, things like that. He sent money to my mom so she could take a bus and go to his city. He said he would arrange a job for her and give her a good life. Oh, he was a bit older too, about 10 years older than her. That's how it happened. He sent the money. My mom went to Natal City, which is the city we live in now, Natal City in Brazil. My dad, they started a relationship. My dad, because he was older, already had businesses, already had a company. And my grandparents, my parents' parents, my grandmother, she died when my mom said she wasn't even pregnant with me. And his father died, who is my grandfather, when I was 5 years old. I remember flashes of my grandfather, but I only have one memory like that, of a day when he came. He came with a different kind of lollipop. And I'm not even sure if I really have that memory or if it's because when my mom shows me pictures, I end up building that memory inside myself. Well, in my father's family, many people from his family died very young. Each one had a different family problem, a different health issue. And with my father, it wasn't any different. My mom says that I was about 7 years old. That is, 2 years later, after my grandfather died, my father also passed away. He died, he had a prostate problem along with other health issues he had, including breathing problems. He used, it seems like, some kind of battery in his heart, which he couldn't go without. Stress, high blood pressure anyway, health problems, including those. When I was little and my mother went through my father's death, she suffered a lot. And she had to take me to the doctor, to the hospital, because she wanted to be sure if I also couldn't be at risk of dying young, or if I wasn't predisposed to have health problems too. Like both of my grandparents, like my father, like my uncle, who my father says died when he was 11 years old. So since everyone in my father's family died, my mother was afraid that this could happen to me too. But the doctors said that usually the stronger genetics, the dominant DNA, comes from the mother, and that my tests didn't show anything she needed to worry about. That being said, my mother had to start building her own life. She also says it was a very complicated time. Because my father had businesses, he had companies, houses, stores. You know, he worked with a lot of things. He had a very good standard of living. My mother lived a very luxurious life, and everything was kind of left to her, right? To her and to me, since I'm my father's daughter. On top of everything, there was still the inheritance that hadn't even passed from my grandfather to my father yet. So it was a very delicate process. Between getting my grandfather's inheritance, which was going to my father, and then my father's inheritance, which was going to my mother, there were some fees to pay, there were bills. And obviously, since my mother, during the years she spent with my father, never got her hands dirty, never studied, never worked, she really lived the life of a trophy wife, and she loved having that life. Because my father wanted her to feel that comfort of having someone to serve her so she could go to the gym, go shopping, and give me everything. Especially after I was born, she did everything for me and her life revolved around me. She didn't know how to manage my father's businesses, which was very complicated because then she had to sell one thing to pay off the debt of another. Because she didn't know how to make the money my father used to make to keep paying for the stock my father had in his businesses. And it was very hard for her because since she didn't know the value of things, she didn't know how to negotiate, she ended up selling some houses for extremely low prices. There were people who took advantage, who were friends of my father, who took advantage of the partnership. They wanted to push her out of the business and didn't want to give her anything that was rightfully hers. And she had a lot of contractual knots, a lot of contractual problems, and of course that had an impact. Even so, my father had some money invested, which was money my mother didn't want to touch. and also the inheritance from my grandfather to my father, which came to me, in this case, to me and my mother. And that was the money she used to organize everything, all the debts, the house, the businesses, everything. And we started to have a calmer life. With the investment money, because the only thing my mother had contact with was the person who handled the investment, which my father wanted her to learn about so she could pass it on to me.
E aí a gente começou a viver disso. Eu sempre
I studied at a very good school, and my mother only got her driver's license after my father died, so she started driving. Let's say that later, when I was older, it was more so she could take care of me, take me places, because I no longer had my father or my grandparents to do things for me. And we kept living that way.
Apesar de tudo isso,
when I was around 11 or 12 years old, I was starting to understand a little more about life. I was becoming a young woman, and I started to notice that my mom had a bit of a different style, the way she dressed. She always liked to dress up. She was always very vain, so she liked to wear really low-cut clothes, She wore very glamorous lipsticks. Her hair was always perfect. She always used everything, a lot, everything, always in excess. And then she had this habit that many times on the weekends, she wanted me to go to bed earlier. And I used to say that the weekend was exactly the day I wanted to stay up later. And then she told me that she was going to start doing some work inside our house, and I didn't really understand what kind of work that was. She said I couldn't be part of it. Our house had a decoration that my mom put up. I don't know if it was my dad who put up that decoration. But there was like a portrait of her wearing leopard print clothes, kind of with a low neckline. And I'm not sure if that was really the painting we had in our house. I have my doubts. But she made everything fancy. She put animal print on everything. For those who don't know, animal print is like things with animal patterns. So things with leopard, things with zebra, fluffy carpets. Like everything was really glamorous, really luxurious, out of nowhere. She started changing the furniture in our house, making the house cozier, more comfortable. There was even a day, it was a Saturday, and she had worn me out. Seriously, we went to the water park, spent the whole day at the water park. She was on the phone a lot, and that really annoyed me, seriously, the phone thing. She was on it a lot because she didn't pay attention. My mom was cool. She gave me everything I asked her to buy. She found a way to get it for me. Sometimes I wanted her to swim, but she'd refuse, saying she couldn't get her hair wet. She'd show up in makeup, always looking put together. And then one day I was lying down and she had told me to go to sleep. It was around 11 at night when I heard the gate of our house opening. And our house had one of those gates that was a bit far from the house, and it made this sound. When the car comes in like this, there's the entrance gate and the exit gate at our house. Inside our house, it was like that, and the street was very calm and quiet. We didn't live in a gated community, but we were in a fancy neighborhood. And then the gate opened. It was one of those shorter little gates. And from my bedroom window, I couldn't see the gate. I could only see the back part of the pool. So since I had heard a noise, I went into the guest room and saw that there was something. Some cars were arriving, and some women were arriving, some men too, and everyone was kind of in my mom's style. Like, the women were very beautiful, glamorous, with nice bodies, with stylish clothes and all, and some charming, handsome guys. And then I looked down the stairs because I didn't want to. My mom said that kids weren't allowed, that kids couldn't show up. But I took a little peek and saw that they were there. It was like a little party. Like at an event, there was a waiter serving drinks, serving cocktails, and I thought that was amazing. I thought it was incredible. When I asked my mom about what I saw, she scolded me and insisted I shouldn't or couldn't have seen it. She said that if someone saw me, it could be a problem for her because it's an adult thing and not something for kids. She told me not to do that anymore, that when she tells me to go to bed, I should go to bed. And after that day, I always listened because almost every Saturday there were people there. So she had a nightlife. She used to have these little parties at my house. With those people, I didn't really understand what it was, but in a way, I thought it was interesting. And I started to grow up thinking, I want to be like my mom. I also want to go to those little parties. Actually, I wanted to grow up and be just like her. So the next day I went up to her and asked her how old I had to be to join. And she said, join what? I said, the little party you have, I want to do it too. She was a little embarrassed. She said she needed to talk to some friends, that she wasn't prepared for that request, that I was still a teenager, that I didn't even have a woman's body yet. And I was like, but what's the problem? And surprisingly, after that, the clothes I wanted to start wearing from then on were a bit more daring. It was the first time I painted my nails red. My mom didn't really want me to, but she had her nails red, so why not? So I started painting my nails red, started wearing a little heavier makeup to go to school. My mom also used to say, why are you trying to act like an adult? Don't do that. You're still a child. But she was my inspiration. And when I said, Mom, but you look so beautiful, I want to look like you. You could feel that inside she was a bit uncomfortable, but at the same time, she didn't say anything. Honestly, my mom gave me everything I asked for. When I was 14 years old, I got my first eyelash extensions and my first nail extensions. I remember that at school, the girls were like, wow, that's awesome. Your mom let you and all that. Because really, eyelash extensions and nail extensions are things that my friends' moms would do, just like my mom did, but my mom let me do it too. When I turned 15, we had a big celebration. My 15th birthday party, which could be a whole other video for me to tell you about because it was really cool. My mom even paid for famous singers from the city to sing at my birthday. I got my first highlights in my hair, and by 14, I had already gotten my period. So at 15, I wanted a dress very similar to the ones my mom used to wear on Saturdays at our house. And in fact, as I was growing up, I was realizing that people there were in that famous crowd. My mom used to say it was networking, that actually they were making deals there. Everyone was together and they were networking. There was nothing unusual about these events my mom organized, at least from what I saw and heard my whole life. They were just gatherings where people would go have some drinks, snacks, eat, and then leave. And it was like 3 hours long, 4 hours at most. When I turned 15 after my 15th birthday party, I was already that 15-year-old girl who got her hair straightened. I used to dye my hair blonde because I kept getting so many highlights that I became even blonder. I was already wearing extremely low-cut clothes, I was already getting eyelash extensions, I was already getting nail extensions, and I was dying to get breast implants. Because even though I'd gotten my period, I didn't have big breasts, and I always thought low-cut clothes that highlight your chest looked really pretty. I wanted that, especially since my mom had that body type. I already wanted to go to the gym, but my mom wouldn't let me actually go to the gym, so I went to Pilates with her, I did swimming. So there were other things my mom would allow me to do. After my 15th birthday, my mom let me go to those little get-togethers, those parties, so I started going. Since I was young, there were a lot of people who kept looking at me like with that look of fresh meat in the place. And I thought all that attention was wonderful. I loved getting attention. I loved that I was the youngest and the prettiest at my mom's event, you know. But honestly, I was just a teenager who was still in high school. Anyway, in one of those conversations, I ended up meeting a guy because he was 26 years old. I mean, he was 26 and I was 15. He started talking to me, started chatting with me, started asking me what I was doing there, who I was. And I told him, I'm the owner here, I live in this house, I'm her daughter and all that, and he was enchanted by me. And he went up to my mom, and there were a lot of older people. And another thing I forgot to mention is that there were always several girls who weren't from the same group, who weren't the same girls. Weak. Like, there were the same girls, but there were always new girls. Like, there were girls, there were the same men, just like there were new men. And many times I recognized people not by their faces because I never stopped to look at anyone's face, but by their car. Because when the car arrived in the garage, I could see whose car was arriving, so I already understood. Because, like it or not, it started when I was 11, and by then I was 15, so it had already been 4 years. Those things happened in our house, and my mom claimed it was for work networking, but never explained what it truly was. And then this guy started talking to my mom, started bothering my mom, started bothering my mom. He wanted to go out with me. He wanted to go out with me. And my mom didn't want to let me. My mom didn't want to let me. My mom didn't want to let me. But he was so handsome, so smart that I wanted to go out with him too. And my mom would say, my daughter, you're only 15 years old. It's dangerous. He's older. I don't think you should. But like I said, my mom didn't know how to say no, so I insisted later, when the event was over and the next week was coming. Since I knew that guy would show up again, my mom wanted to forbid me from going downstairs. She said, no, you've already gone once, you're not going again, I don't want you to network, you're too young. I said, but what's the problem? He wants to date me, and I want to know him. What's wrong with that? She said, you don't know business yet because you're too young. And that started to become a mess in my head until she finally let me go out with this guy. She gave me permission because he really wanted me to go out with him too. So we went out, he took me to dinner, but it wasn't on Saturday, it wasn't like that. It was at another time on a different date. He picked me up at my house in that beautiful car. He had a really nice car, and we were talking, and I started talking to him. He told me that he had actually graduated in engineering, that he was doing other courses and stuff, that he worked at his father's factory. And believe it or not, his father was also involved in this business. And then they kind of said that my mom's deal was about lending money, that she made loans. It was like she was a loan shark, but she always threw little parties to maintain contacts. I didn't really understand what a loan shark was or anything like that. I was confused about what he was talking about, but it was fine since I didn't really understand what was happening. In the end, it all made sense, right? She made a lot of money, she had inherited money, so she was lending money, that kind of thing. But what happened was, after that day, he really wanted to go out with me more often. My mom kind of allowed it, but she told me to be careful, not to get into a relationship, not to lose my virginity to him, things like that. But by that point, I was already extremely in love with him. We talked on WhatsApp all day long. He was very romantic, very affectionate. He took me to wonderful restaurants, places I used to go by. My friends at school were jealous. He would open the car door for me. I really had a princess life. And then at one of those gatherings, those hangouts, we ended up going out for a little outing. And from there, we ended up sleeping together. And he ended up having his first time with me. It was a very magical thing. He was very affectionate. He was very attentive. He was very kind. And after that day, he kept chasing after me, texting my mom, wanting to be with me, wanting to date me. I was almost turning 16 years old. We kept seeing each other for a while. And then one day we kind of had an argument. I don't remember the reason for that argument, what it was about. He came over to my house so we could talk. I was there. He came up to my room. I was inside. I closed the door. I remember I was in my pajamas doing my nails, putting this polish on my nails, and then he started talking. He said that even though I was my mother's daughter, that the way I dressed, the way I behaved, that I was too young to use nail extensions and eyelash extensions, that I didn't look like a 15-year-old girl, that I looked like a 20-year-old girl. I asked him why he was saying that to me. After he got over his nervousness, he started criticizing me, but he insisted he wasn't, but that I was mature enough to follow in my mother's footsteps. And I was like, follow in my mother's footsteps in what way? Huh, why are you saying that? It doesn't make any sense for you to say that and all. He couldn't really explain it to me very well. He said one day I'd wake up and understand what was happening, and I replied, but you've already told me what's happening, so why are you saying this? That's totally wrong what you're saying. You're trying to criticize me to my mom. I don't know why you're doing this, all that stuff. Anyway, you guys must have guessed, right? My mom ended up opening up on Saturdays at our house. It was like an app just for the elite, but for dating, but in person, you know? So every Saturday, there was an in-person meeting for people who were part of this platform. My mom had launched it together with her friends. It was a dating platform. And this platform, it brought elite people inside our house, and there were the meetings, but it wasn't anything paid. It wasn't escorts. It wasn't anything like that. And since I lived in the house, his fear was that I would meet someone else, you know? So he wanted a serious relationship with me, but since my mom was really strict with him, he felt like, wow, I can't ask her to be my girlfriend. She's still too young. She's just a girl, right? I really followed my mom's path. I followed in her footsteps a lot. I dressed like her. So in his mind, he was going to lose me. Because soon at one of those events my mom organized, I would meet another guy, you know? And when I found that out, I thought it was amazing. I was like, my mom is so creative. My mom is wonderful. She's great. She developed an elite dating app that brought events into our house with really rich people. And she made a lot of money with that because honestly, my mom already had money, but I saw her swimming in money after all those get-togethers. But in my mind, I was already thinking my mom was a madam. At those times, I thought my mom was selling girls. I thought a lot of horrible things about her, but actually, no. Actually, she had developed a really cool app. I thought that was super nice. I told him not to worry, that I wasn't interested in meeting anyone, that I really liked him. He cried, asked my mom for forgiveness because he was really embarrassed. He got so emotional that when my mom went to ask him why, that he had told me those things, that she would have been the one to tell me and she was about to tell me. He said he was afraid of losing me and all that. But to sum up, we had a relationship for a good 3 years, right? After that, it really didn't make sense for me to take part in those events anymore. I didn't want to participate anymore, neither did he. So on Saturdays, I always went to his house and spent time with him. Over time, my mom also wanted to bring those events to other places like rooftops. Today, the app is really well known among other apps, right? My mom also ended up selling the app to one person, selling the app to another, and she developed several of them. Because it's like she created a production line there, making an app, connecting people. And those same millionaires who were part of it sometimes ended up going into business with her. She would sell the app, leave the partnership, and then launch another one to keep things moving, bringing in different people. Her network worked really well, and with that, she sold some apps to some people, and it worked out great here in Brazil for everyone. And I was really happy to know that she managed to create her own business, and it wasn't something as bizarre as I thought it could be. Knowing that I met the guy like that I got involved with him, that I was in love, that I lost my virginity there. But what really got to me at the time was that, so you matched with someone and he said no. Because these events weren't just to meet someone you matched with on the app. You could also go to the party to match with someone in person. And he said he matched with me from the first time he saw me, but seriously, a lot of guys would have matched with me. Because I was only 15 years old, I was with him for just 3 years, we dated, had a wonderful relationship. Then it didn't work out, and we each went our separate ways. Anyway, I followed in my mother's footsteps, and today I work at the company with her. She still doesn't say no to me. A lot of the things I want, she gives me, and she said that as soon as I'm ready, she also wants to develop some kind of app, something for my audience, for me, so I can manage my career, learn to negotiate, and make my own fortune, just like she made hers. Hi, my cats, how are you all doing? I thought this story was really creative and really cool. It's been a while since we brought stories here about companies, right? About inheritance, and I love getting these kinds of stories here. I admit that when she said her mother, as I was reading, and she was talking about luxury and everything, and her mother always wearing very beautiful low-cut clothes, it kind of gave off a vibe that she was involved in something a little shady. But when she talked about the app, the dating app made a lot of sense. And it's great, right? That she managed to stand out, that she managed to get out. So I wrote down the names of some apps here in case you ever want to try looking for relationships through an app, right? I saw that here we have Raya, which is like the Tinder for celebrities. It's very selective, focused on artists, models, entrepreneurs with a waiting list, and you need a referral on your Instagram profile. To get a strong approval, there's Luxy, which is known as Tinder with millionaires, focused on connecting rich and successful people with monthly fees and approval filters. And there's also Elite Cuphead, which promises to connect elite singles, millionaires, and people who value success, offering a community for meaningful encounters, as described on the apps page in the Google Play Store, so there are also several other apps as well. She gave the name something like that, but I don't know, right? If those are really the names, or if she just wanted to put several to mix things up. But anyway, I found the story interesting, I hope you liked it, and I want to ask you, would you get involved? Would you have a serious relationship? Would you find the love of your life on a dating app? Leave your answer here in the comments. And if you met someone like that on an app, send me your story at historiascanaldetipoalobad.com. Like, comment, share, kisses, and see you in the next video.